There's a conversation people avoid having, honestly. Everyone talks about getting rich. Everyone likes the idea of financial freedom. People watch videos about money. They follow entrepreneurs. They read quotes about success. But very few people actually become wealthy. And the reason isn't what most people think. It's not because the system's impossible. It's not because opportunities don't exist. And it's definitely not because successful people are somehow superhuman, okay? The real reason most people never become rich is much simpler. They just don't want it badly enough, and not in a way that it actually matters. Because wanting something casually and wanting something enough to change your life are two completely different things. Everyone likes the idea of having money, but very few people are willing to structure their life around building it. Think about how most people spend their time. They wake up, they go to work, they come home, scroll their phone, maybe complain about their job, maybe talk about starting something someday. Then the next day looks almost identical. And weeks turn into months, months turn into years, and nothing changes. Zero change. And not because those people are stupid. They definitely don't lack the potential, but because building wealth requires something most people avoid: intensity. You just need to have the intensity, okay? Like, you got to go all in, you have to believe in yourself, and you have to continue pushing through. It's like that saying, if there's a will, there's a way. And the people that are actually about it are the ones that, accomplish it. It doesn't matter what you're doing. Like, the people who build serious money early in life usually become obsessed with something: a business, a skill, an idea, a project, something. I became a self made millionaire at the age of 20. I went all in with this idea of having my own business and being my own boss. Like, I just love that. I didn't want to have somebody over my shoulders. I wanted to be in a leadership position, and I wanted to call the shots. And I'm fortunate for the position that I am in. And I'm not saying that to brag, but I'm just saying the reason how I got here at such a young age is I had this burning desire. I wanted it more than everyone. The intensity. That is the number one separating factor. You know, Something that consumes your attention. I was thinking about success constantly. And also, the people who do get that success, they work on it longer than everyone else. They keep pushing even when progress is slow. And just that level of obsession, it looks strange from the outside. It really does, because most people don't operate that way. Most people prefer balance. As an entrepreneur, I've never really had a real job. There's no such thing as balance in my life. It's chaotic, it's hectic, it's tough. But the 20s are meant to be hard. I have another video on that on the channel. But you put in the work in your 20s, and then you get to enjoy your 30s, as opposed to just drifting and waiting until retirement and the day you die. Like, that is not the type of life I want for me. And I don't hate on people who prefer balance, but I'm just saying that most people prefer balance. They prefer comfort, predictability. And again, nothing wrong with that. But comfort and wealth rarely go in the same direction. I need you guys to understand that, because building something valuable usually requires long periods where the reward isn't visible yet. You're putting in effort without immediate results. You're solving problems constantly. You're figuring things out as you go. And for a lot of people, that process feels exhausting. So they quit, or they never start at all. They convince themselves that they'll try later, when life slows down, when things feel more stable, when the timing is perfect. But perfect timing rarely exists. The people who end up building something meaningful usually start before they feel ready. They start with incomplete information, they learn while moving, and over time, that motion creates momentum. And momentum, if you don't know, is one of the most powerful forces in life, because once something starts working, your opportunities multiply. Your skills will improve, your confidence grows, and people notice what you're building. Doors will open that didn't exist before. But momentum only appears after action. Action comes first, then you have the momentum, okay? But action is where most people stop. Why? Well, because action requires risk, it requires effort, and it requires putting your ego in a position where things might fail. And failure is something people try to avoid as much as possible, which is ironic, because failure is almost always part of the path. No, not even almost always. It is always a part of path towards success, you guys. Businesses fail, ideas fail, experiments fail. It's okay, because every failure teaches you something useful if you keep going. That is the issue, is that most people, they do not keep going. They quit. The reason why I am in the position that I am in is because I just never quit. I don't know what it means to quit. That doesn't even enter my conscious, okay? And over time, those lessons will also compound into experience, because experience that other people, like, it's experience that other people don't have because they just never went through that same process. Like when I started building my business, I didn't have everything figured out, not even close. I started at the eight when I was in high school, my sophomore year. My sophomore year of high school is when I started my first like side hustle slash business that eventually was in the same industry of what I do now. But one thing I was doing was I was learning constantly. I was making mistakes, adjusting, solving problems as they appeared. But the key difference is that I just kept moving. I kept going. I never quit, because movement matters more than perfection. That's a very, very big topic here, because a lot of people get stuck waiting until they fully understand what they're doing. But that moment just rarely comes. Understanding usually appears after you've already started, after you've already made mistakes and experimented. That is why people who move quickly tend to learn faster than people who sit on the sidelines just analyzing everything. And that used to be me. In high school, I was very much an overanalyzer, overthinker. And now that I shifted to entrepreneurship, you have to shoot first, aim later. That is kind of the way you got to do it if you want to make it, because action creates feedback. Feedback creates improvement, and improvement creates results. That's kind of the loop, the circle, if you will. But again, none of that will happen if you don't take that first step. That's why the real barrier between people who build wealth and people who don't, it's rarely intelligence. It's ultimately just comes down to urgency and intensity, and how bad do you want it? Because some people feel an internal urgency to build something. That was me when I was starting this business, and right now I have that same urgency for building up this YouTube channel, and you have to take advantage of it, because once that fire ignites inside of you, you become unstoppable. You want the progress now. I want the growth now, and I'm going to do whatever it takes to get that. Other people, though, they assume that there's always more time. We'll start later, next year. Yeah, let's try next year. You know, in their 30s and their 40s. I'm so busy in my 20s. It's messy. When things slow down, when they get a little easier. But guys, life doesn't really slow down that way, because your responsibilities increase, your bills increase, and your energy decreases. Okay, it's a losing formula the longer that you wait. You need to take advantage now. Now, you might be watching this and you're in your 30s. That doesn't mean you can only be successful if you're in your 20s. But guys, it will be even worse in your 40s. Okay, so if you're in your 30s right now, still do everything I'm saying to do in this video. Because suddenly, the time that once felt abundant becomes limited. That is also why the people who start early often end up far ahead in life. They're not smarter than you. They just are compounding their efforts sooner. And it doesn't just have to be money. Money's a great explanation here for talking about the compound, but your life could compound in so many different ways. It could even be your health, relationships. Effort compounds the same way that money does. It's not just about money. It's just your effort in whatever that you want to pursue. The earlier that you invest it, the more powerful it becomes over time. And that is why some people, myself included, we are building massive momentum in our 20s. I never had perfect plans, okay? I'm just talking other people who are in a similar situation. We were just willing to push harder than most people around us. And again, once that momentum starts building, the differences become obvious. You don't see it right away, but in a few years you'll see the difference. I compare myself now to people my age. They don't even have $100,000 saved up. I saved up $100,000 by the time I graduated high school. Now that doesn't mean I'm better than them, but financially I am ahead. And that was my goal, was because I wanted the freedom to do whatever I want. I like this idea of having my own business and being my own boss. And, it's not for everybody. We need jobs. It's a very important thing. But I'm just throwing it out there for the people who want to take control of their life, who want to go down this self-employment route. You just got to start, The person who spends years building skills, businesses, projects, those are the people who start seeing the results. While on the other side, you have people who just spend years drifting, and they're still wondering, hey, where do I begin? And you do not want to be in that position, because the truth is, the opportunity to build something meaningful has never been more accessible than it is today. Starting 20 years ago, It was way harder without the internet. But now you could learn high income skills. You could do digital product. There's just so much things you could do. You could literally do anything you want in 2026 thanks to the internet. As long as it's tied to the internet, you're good. You know, your biggest limitation today is an opportunity. People tell me all the time, oh, the opportunity is just not there. It's not true. It comes down to your discipline, your focus, and your willingness to spend years building something before the rewards become obvious. Can you keep pushing and going even if the reward isn't there? That's the name of the game, you guys. And that is also the part that most people struggle with, because in a world filled with constant entertainment and distraction, sustained effort feels really, really rare. But rare effort creates rare outcomes. And the people who eventually build extraordinary lives, those are the people who are willing to do ordinary work consistently for just long periods of time. They show up regardless of how they feel. That's what discipline is. They build, they improve, and slowly the results start stacking. Again, slowly, brick by brick. Empires are not built overnight. It is very slow. That's also why becoming wealthy isn't really about luck as much as people assume. People look at my position now, even close friends that I grew up with, they tell me, oh, you are so lucky. They don't have the slightest clue what it took getting here. It's just about direction. It's about deciding what you want and then committing to the process of building it. The truth is that the opportunity was always there. The question was whether you were willing to pursue it seriously enough to actually catch it. Let me know what you guys think of this video. That's all I got. Hopefully you learned something. If you did, you're enjoying the content, please consider subscribing. But I think you guys just need to jump on it. Sustained effort. Do it for long periods of time. Even if the reward isn't there, just keep going and never quit. That's what I'm going to leave for you guys today. Till the next time.